नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। सूत उवाच महीपतिस्त्वत तत्कर्मगर्ह्यं विचिन्तयन्नात्मकृतं सुधर्मणाहम् अहो मया नीचम् अनार्यवत्कृतं निरागसि ब्रह्मणि घोरतेजसि।
Sri Sut Goswami said, while returning home, the king, Maharaj Parikshit, felt that the act he had committed against the faultless and the powerful Brahman was heinous and uncivilized. Consequently, he was distressed.
ध्रुवं ततो मे कृतदेव हेलनान् दुरत्ययं व्यसनं नातिदीर्घात् तदस्तु कामं ह्यगनिष्कृताय मे यथा न कुर्यं पुनरेव मद्धा।
King Parikshit thought, due to my neglecting the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, I must certainly expect some difficulty to overcome me in the near future. I now desire without reservation that the calamity come now, for in this way I may be freed of the sinful action and not commit such an offense again.
अद्यैव राज्यं फलमृद्धकोशं प्रकुयित ब्रह्माकुलानलो मे धत्वभद्रस्य पुनर्न मे अभूत् पापीयसि धीहि द्विजदेव गोभ्यः।
I am uncivilized and sinful due to the neglect of Brahmanical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahman's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes.
सचिन्तयन् नित्यम् अथ अशृणोत्यत मुनुहेषु तोक्तो निरुदितक्षकाख्यः ससाधु मेने अज्ञचिरेण तक्षक अनलं प्रसक्तस्य विरक्तिकारणम्।
While the king was thus repenting, he received news of his imminent death, which would be due to the bite of a snake bird, occasioned by the curse spoken by the sage's son. The king accepted this as good news, for it would be the cause of his indifference toward worldly things.
अतो विहाये इमम् अमुं च लोकं विमर्शितो हेतया पुरस्तात् कृष्णाङ्ग्रसेवा अधिमधिमन्यमानः उपाविशत् प्रायम् अमत्य नद्याम्।
Maharaj Parikshit sat down firmly on the bank of Ganges to concentrate his mind in Krishna consciousness, rejecting all other practices of self-realization, because transcendental loving service to Krishna is the greatest achievement, superseding all other methods.
या वैलस श्री तुलसी विमिश्रा कृष्णाङ्ग्रेणु अभ्युदकाम्भुनेत्री पुनातिलोकान् उभयत्र शेषान् कस्तां न सेवेत मरिष्यमाणः।
The river by which the king sat to fast carries the most auspicious water, which is mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord and tulsi leaves. Therefore, that water sanctifies the three worlds inside and outside, and even sanctifies Lord Shiv and other demigods. Consequently, everyone who is destined to die must take shelter of this river.
इति विवचिज्य स पाण्डवेयः प्रायोपवेशं प्रति विष्णुपद्यां दधौ मुकुन्दाङ्घ्रिम् अनन्यभावो मुनिवृतो मुक्तसमस्तसङ्गः।
Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all and sent on the Ganges bank to fast until death and give himself up to the lotus feet of
No sound.
I was muted. I'll repeat that. Thus the king, the worthy descendant of the Pandavas, decided once and for all and sat on the Ganges bank to fast until death and give himself up to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who alone is able to award liberation. So freeing himself from all kind of association and attachments, he accepted the vows of a sage.
तत्रोपजग्मुः भुवनं पुनाना महानुभावा मुनः सशिष्याः प्राये निषिद्धाभिगमापदेशैः स्वयं हि तीर्थानि पुनन्ति सन्तः.
At that time, all the great minds and thinkers, accompanied by their disciples and sages, who could verily sanctify a place of pilgrimage just by their presence, arrived there on the plea of making a pilgrim's journey.
अत्रि हि वसिष्ठच्यवनः शरद्वान् अरिष्टनेमिः भृगुरङ्गिराक्षां पराशरोघादिसुतोधराम उदच्च इन्द्र प्रमदेद्भवाहौ मेधातिथिर्देवल आस्तिशेनो भरद्वाजो गौतमः पिप्पलादः मैत्रेय और्वः कवशः कुम्भयोनिः द्वैपायनो भगवन्नारदश्च.
From different parts of the universe, there arrived great sages like Atri, Kavana, Sardwan, Astitanami, Brug, Vasista, Parasar, Vishwamitra, Angira, Parshuram, Uttatya, Indra Pramada, Idmahavu, Medatithi, Devla, Atisena, Bharadwaja, Gautam, Pipalada, Maitreya, Urva, Kavasha, Kumbhayoni, Devyapayana, and the grace personality Narad.
अन्ये च देवस्य ब्रह्मर्षिवर्या राजर्षिवर्या अरुणादयश्च नान्य अर्षय प्रवरान् समेतान् अभ्यस्य राजा शिरसा ववन्दे.
There were also many other saintly demigods, kings, and special royal orders called the Arunadyas, a special rank of Rajashris from different dynasties of sages. When they all assembled together to meet the emperor Parikshit, he received them properly and bowed his head to the ground.
सुकोपविष्टेषु अततेषु भूयः कृतप्रणामः स्वचिकीर्षितं यन् विज्ञापयामास विविक्तचेता उपसितो अग्रे अभिगृहीतपाणिः.
After all the rishis and others had seated themselves comfortably, the king, humbly standing before them with folded hands, told them of his decision to fast until death.
राज उवाच अहो वयं धन्यतमा नृपाणां महत्तमानुग्रहणीयशीलाहं राज्ञां कुलं ब्राह्मणपादशौचात् दूरात् विसृष्टुं बदगर्ह्य कर्म.
Fortunate king said, "Indeed, we are the most grateful of all kings who are trained to get favors from the great soul. Generally, you sages consider royalty as refused to be rejected and left in a distant place."
तस्यैव मे अगस्य परावरेषु व्यासक्तचित्तस्य गृहेषु अभीक्ष्णं निर्वेदमूलोद्विजिशापरूपो यत्र प्रसक्तो भयमाशु धत्ते.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the controller of both transcendental and mundane worlds, had graciously overtaken me in form of a Brahman's curse. Due to my being too much attached to family life, the Lord, in order to save me, has appeared before me in such a way that only out of fear I will detach myself from the world.
तम्मोपयातुं प्रतियन्तु विप्रा गंगा च देवी दुर्चित्तमीशे द्विजोपसृष्टः कुहकः तक्षको वा दशत्वलं गायत विष्णुगाथाः.
O Brahmanas, just accept me as a completely surrendered soul and let Mother Ganges, the representative of the Lord, also accept me in that way, for I have already taken the lotus feet of the Lord into my heart. Let the snake bird, or whatever magical thing that the Brahman had created, bite me at once. I only desire that you all continue singing the deeds of Lord Vishnu.
पुनश्च भूयाद् भगवत्यनन्ते रतिः प्रसङ्गाश्च तदाश्रयेषु महस्तु यां यम् उपयामि सृष्टिं मैत्रेस्तु सर्वत्र नमोद्विजेभ्यः.
Again, offering obeisances unto all you Brahmins, I pray that if I should again take birth in the material world, I will complete attachment to the unlimited Lord Krishna, association with his devotees, and friendly relations with all living beings.
इति स्म राजा अध्यवसायुक्तः प्राचीनमूलेषु कुशेषु धीरः उदक्मुखो दक्षिणकूल आस्ते समुद्रपत्न्यः सुसुतन्यस्तभारः.
In perfect self-control, Maharaj Parikshit sat down on a seat of straw with straw roots facing the east, placed on the southern bank of the Ganges, and he himself faced the north. Just previously, he had given charge of his kingdom over to his son.
एवं च तस्मिन् नरदेव देवे प्रायोपविष्टे दिवि देवसङ्गाः प्रशस्य भूमौ विकिरन् प्रसूनैः मुदा मुहुः दुन्दुभयशनेदुः.
Thus the king, Maharaj Parikshit, sat to fast until death. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's action, and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums.
महर्षयो वै समुपागताये प्रशिष्य साद्भित्यनुमोदमानाः ऊचुः प्रजानुग्रहशीलसाराः यदुत्तमश्लोकाघुनाभिरूपम्.
All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit, and they expressed their approval by saying, "Very good." Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they all have qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows.
न वा इदं राजस्य वच्यचित्रं भवत्सु कृष्णं समनुवृतेषु ये अध्यासनं राजकिरीटजुष्टं सज्जो जहुः भगवत्पार्श्वकामाः.
The sages said, "O chief of all saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty, who are strictly in the line of Lord Shri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the Supreme Personality of the Godhead."
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
No, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Amoga. That was so powerful and purifying to hear you reciting. And Nena Mataji, thank you also for reciting the English so nicely. Thank you. You can hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone to today's chat session. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, the last chapter, chapter number 19, entitled The Appearance of Shukdev Goswami. And today we'll be discussing in more detail text number 19 and 20. Before we do that, let's recite the Mangala Charanam praise together. You can do so behind muted mics. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutidevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadi Shatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we've been reading from text 1 to 7 how Maharaj Parikshit had regretted his action, how he accepted the curse that was bestowed upon him, and how he renounced his kingdom, having handed over the ruling to his son Janamejaya. And then the verses building up to this, we have read how Maharaj Parikshit had submitted himself to all of the assembled sages and his decision to fast. Text 17 to 18, we've been reading how the demigods praised Maharaj Parikshit's decision and actions. And from text number 19 to 22, we are going to read the sages' appreciation for Maharaj Parikshit. And that will begin with this verse. Maharsaya vai samupagateye prasasya sadvi iti anomod damahanaha uchur prajanu grahashila sara yad utamashloka gunabhi rupam. Word for word translations. Maharsaya, the great sages, vai, as a matter of course, samubha pagataha, assembled there, ye, those who, prasasya, for praising, sadhu, quite all right, iti, thus, anumod dramanaha, all approving, Uchu, said, Praja Anugraha, doing good to the living beings. Shila Saraha, qualitatively powerful, yet because Uttama Shloka, one who is praised by selected poems. Guna Abhirupam, as beautiful as godly qualities. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All the great sages who were assembled there also praised the decision of Maharaj Parikshit, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Naturally, the sages are inclined to do good to common men, for they are all the qualitative powers of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they were very much pleased to see Maharaj Parikshit, a devotee of the Lord, and they spoke as follows. Purport. The natural beauty of a living being is enhanced by rising up to the platform of devotional service. Maharaj Parikshit was absorbed in attachment for Lord Krishna. Seeing this, the great sages assembled were very pleased, and they expressed their approval by saying, very good. Such sages are naturally inclined to do good to the common man, and when they see a personality like Maharaj Parikshit advance in devotional service, their pleasure knows no bounds, and they offer all blessings in their power. The devotional service of the Lord is so auspicious that all demigods and sages, up to the Lord himself, become pleased with the devotee. And therefore the devotee finds everything auspicious. All inauspicious matters are removed from the path of a progressive devotee. Meeting all the great sages at the time of death was certainly auspicious for Maharaj Parikshit, and thus he was blessed by the so-called curse of a Brahman's boy. The beautiful verse, the response of the sages to Maharaj Parikshit decision. And what stands out from the descriptions of this verse is how joyful, how happy the sages were. Lord Krishna himself declares in the Bhagavad Gita, Sa Mahatma Sudhurlabha, that when a soul fully surrenders to the Lord, this is a very rare, it's a very rare occurrence. And it brings so much joy to the Lord and the devotees. One of the primary sentiments and missions of the Lord and the devotees on this planet is to turn the attention of the conditioned souls away from Maya and towards the Lord. But this itself is a very, very difficult. In the third canto, Lord Kapila is talking to his mother Devahuti. And in there he says that it's almost impossible for a conditioned soul to turn towards the Lord. Therefore, that event when a soul turns towards the Lord, it is a cause for great celebration. And not only turns, but when one advances very nicely, or one progresses towards the topmost stage in their devotional life, it is very, very pleasing to the spiritual master. It's very pleasing to the Lord's devotees. It's very pleasing to the sages. And it's very pleasing to the Lord himself. You know, I've said the story a few times, but I like to say it again because it is such a wonderful story. How once Srila Prabhupada initiated one devotee, and he gave him the name Bhavananda. Now, Bhava has two meanings. It means, one meaning is ecstasy, and the other meaning is Bhava, this earthly planet or this material world is called Bhava. So the devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what is this meaning of this name you've given me? Bhavananda. Prabhupada said, Bhavananda means the bliss of the material world. Now, after the initiation, this devotee was thinking about Prabhupada's explanation of his name, the bliss of the material world. And he said, this is contrary to everything Srila Prabhupada has taught us. Prabhupada is always telling us, Dukkha elama shashvatam. This material world is a place of repeated birth and misery. We should come out of here. Not a fit place for a gentleman. And now he's giving me a name, the bliss of the material world. So he felt confused and he decided he needs to go and speak to Srila Prabhupada to clarify that he heard right and to understand what Prabhupada meant. Then he went to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, did I hear right? You said the meaning of my name is the bliss of the material world? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, but Prabhupada, how can you explain this? And Prabhupada said, yes, I'll explain. And Prabhupada explained that the bliss of the material world means preaching. And Prabhupada says Krishna is very anxious for the living entities to come out of the suffering and to come back to him. And when the devotee preaches and someone turns towards Krishna, Krishna becomes very blissful, very happy. And that's what it is, means the bliss of the material world. So here we see the sages, they are so happy that Maharaj Parikshit, he had taken this decision to dedicate his life fully to Krishna. And Prabhupada explains towards the latter part of the purport that devotional service is so auspicious that all demigods and sages up to the Lord himself become pleased with the devotee. In the Nectar of Devotion, at the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami lists 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. 6 characteristics. And one of the characteristics he mentions is Shubhada. Shubhada means all auspiciousness. That Krishna consciousness brings all auspiciousness into the lives of the devotees. And Prabhupada says, all inauspicious matters I remove from the path of a progressive devotee. It's interesting that Prabhupada very carefully chooses the word progressive devotee. What does progressive devotee mean? It means a devotee that is progressing more and more and more and more on the devotional path. The more we progress on the devotional path, the more and more auspicious our lives will become. In the Skanda Purana, there is one verse, and in that verse it says that all of the demigods, they are just waiting to bestow benedictions and blessings on the devotee. And it's interesting how Prabhupada writes in the last line that Maharaj Parikshit, he received one inauspicious curse. Well, actually, it's not inauspicious because it brought him all auspiciousness. But that one curse brought him so many blessings. In this verse, by all of these great sages we've just been reading about. So this verse is so encouraging for all of us. And it was somewhere else, I can't remember where. It says, similar to this, very good. Like when Dhruva Maharaj embarked on his path of renunciation, he was also congratulated by Narada Muni, but also discouraged later, but he was congratulated. So it's all auspicious devotional service, and it's very pleasing to the Lord. And it's nice that we're reading this verse now because we're entering the winter December book marathon. All of us have the opportunity to give Krishna consciousness, to spread Krishna conscious knowledge in the form of Srila Prabhupada's books, and bring auspiciousness into people's lives, and in the same way, auspiciousness into our own lives. So we'll move on to the next verse, text number 20. Nava idam rajasiri varya chitram bhavat sukrishnam samanuvrateshu yedyashanam sanam rajakirtita justam sajo jahur bhagavat parshvakamaha. Synonyms: na, neither; va, like this; idam, this; Raja Rishi, saintly kings; Varya, the chief; Chitram, astonishing; Bhavatsu, unto all of you; Krishnam, Lord Krishna; Samanu Vrateshu, unto those who are strictly in the line of Ye, who; Adhyasanam, seated on the throne; Raja Kirita, helmets of kings; Jushtam, decorated; Sadhya, immediately; Jahur, gave up; Bhagavat, the personality of Godhead; Parshva Kamaha, desiring to achieve association. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The sages said, O chief of all the saintly kings of the Pandu dynasty, who are strictly in the line of Lord Sri Krishna, it is not at all astonishing that you give up your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings, to achieve eternal association with the personality of Godhead. Purport. Would anyone like to read? Read the first paragraph.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Please. Hare Krishna, Puja Mataji.
Foolish politicians who hold political administrative posts think that the temporary posts they occupy are the highest material gain of life, and therefore they stick to those posts even up to the last moment of life, without knowing that achievement of liberation as one of the associates of the Lord in his eternal abode is the highest gain of life. The human life is meant for achieving this end. The Lord has assured us in the Bhagavad Gita many times that going back to Godhead, his eternal abode, is the highest achievement. Prahlad Maharaj, while praying to Lord Narasimha, said, "Oh my Lord, I'm very much afraid of the materialistic way of life, and I'm not the least afraid of your present, ghastly, ferocious future as Narasimha Deva. This materialistic way of life is something like a grinding stone, and we are being crushed by it. We have fallen into this horrible whirlpool of the tossing waves of life. And thus, my Lord, I pray at your lotus feet to call me back to your eternal abode as one of your servitors. This is the summit liberation of this materialistic way of life. I have very bitter experience of the materialistic way of life. In whichever species of life I have taken birth, compelled by the force of my own activities, I have very painfully experienced two things, namely separation from my beloved and meeting with what is not wanted. And to counteract them, the remedies which I undertook were more dangerous than the disease itself. So I drift from one point to another, birth after birth, and I prayed to you, therefore, to give me shelter at your lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Very nice, Puja Mataji. Anyone else likes to read the last paragraph?
Prabhuji, I can do it.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you.
The Pandava kings, who are more than many saints of the world, knew the bitter results of the materialist way of life. They were never captivated by the glare of the imperial throne they occupied, and they sought always the opportunity of being called by the Lord to associate with him eternally. Maharaj Parikshit was a worthy grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira gave up the imperial throne to his grandson, and similarly, Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhishthira, gave up the imperial throne to his son Janmejaya. That is the way of all the kings in the dynasty, because they are all strictly in the line of Lord Krishna. Thus, the devotees of the Lord are never enchanted by the glare of materialistic life, and they live impartially, unattached to the objects of the false, illusory, materialist way of life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Krishna Mataji. So, very interesting verse. Normally, it is very astonishing for a king, a prime minister, or a big politician, or a leader to give up their big post. As they say, normally you have to remove them kicking and screaming, because such people are so attached to their position and all of the opulences and gratification that such positions bring them. And therefore Prabhupada says they stick to the post even to the very last moment of life. And we've seen this in the history of mankind. Leaders, and politicians, and kings, they cannot give it up. It is astonishing if such a person in post is able to give it up. Actually, of the modern leaders, the only person I can think of that did that was Nelson Mandela. He was the president of South Africa, and he ruled for a little while and he stepped down and gave it to somebody else. Maybe because he had read Bhagavad Gita in the prison, he said. But here the sages are saying, it is not astonishing. It is not astonishing to see you, Maharaj Parikshit, that you have given up. And they use an interesting phrase here. Raja Kirita Justam. Raja Kirita Justam. That person, your throne, which is decorated with the helmets of many kings. What does that mean? Decorated with the helmets means that all other kings have become subordinate to Maharaj Parikshit because of his powerful ruling. He had all of the other kings on his throne under his care, but he gave it up. He gave it up. In the Bhagavatam, when there's a description of Maharaj Bharat Maharaj, he was the ruler of the entire earth. And Bhagavatam says, just like someone goes and to answer the call of nature, they pass and they just leave that what they passed and move on without a single thought. In the same way, Bharat Maharaj, he left his kingdom completely detached. And one may wonder or ask the question, how is it? How is it that they could be so detached? And the answer is because they are so strongly attached to Krishna. When one becomes very, very strongly attached to Krishna, param drishta nivartate, that having acquired a higher taste, the lower tastes are very easy to give up. And what is the higher taste? It is the nectar that comes from serving Krishna and hearing and chanting about Krishna. And therefore the sages, they praise Maharaj Parikshit, saying it's not astonishing. We can know it's not astonishing that you can give up. You have given up your throne. It's not at all astonishing because you are such a staunch devotee of Krishna. You're such a staunch devotee of Krishna. And you are so determined to achieve the eternal association with the personality of Godhead. And this is very instructive for all of us. Sometimes, we struggle with our own attachments. Attachments come in various guises and various forms. And sometimes spiritual life seems almost a struggle. But when we come to the stage of ruchi, at that stage, everything material seems insignificant. The only purpose we see, the only joy we see is in the devotional service of life. And that's why Prahlad Maharaj says, just like iron filings are attracted to a magnet, my mind is automatically attracted to the Lord. And this is the purpose of our life until and up to the point we become completely disgusted with material life. And until we achieve the real taste of Krishna consciousness, we'll find ourselves in this intermediate zone, the intermediate zone where we have not yet become fully disgusted with material life, and we've not yet tasted the nectar of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, we are on the path. We have some realization of the futility of material life, and we have some taste of the nectar of Krishna consciousness. But because it's not sufficient, sometimes we oscillate. We oscillate between different positions. But certainly, if we stick to the path of devotional service, if we stick to Krishna consciousness, then renunciation. Therefore, Bhagavatam says, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Jnana Ati Asu Vairagya Janat Tad Ahoitukam. That simply by executing and performing devotional service, automatically renunciation and knowledge come upon the devotee. The devotee does not have to extraneously try to detach. Detachment comes automatically as a consequence of devotional service. And knowledge also comes because Krishna, situated within the heart of all living entities, he reveals the knowledge. So the great sages are celebrating this position of Maharaj Parikshit, that how such a great king has been able to immediately give up his royal position and go to the river bank of the river Ganges and surrender to Krishna, desiring, strongly desiring the eternal association of Krishna. Hare Krishna, we'll stop here. We'll take any questions, comments, reflections, realizations, or corrections anyone may have. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Danda Pranam. It's very interesting to actually hear, and the analogy which has been given for leaving certain positions or certain the designations or leadership roles or whatever in a material life, how do we achieve that as a devotee, even though we understand that yes, that's the supreme goal and that's how it should be, and when the time comes to leave positions or leave designations, there is actually some kind of a attachment to that, and you do feel like, yes, something is not quite right, or I'm not able to cope with it. So how do we deal with that practically?
The Lord himself, as I was trying to explain, explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. And, Krishna says, by experiencing the higher taste, just, negating by simple negation, it's very, very difficult. But when we experience the higher taste, and when we say experience the higher taste, it means devotional service to the Lord. When we get a taste, or that taste increases and increases and increases, then we can give up. Actually, we realize there's nothing to give up because everything belongs to Krishna anyway. And use it in Krishna service. That's how the process of Krishna consciousness works. It really, we have to experience the higher taste. If we don't experience the higher taste, it's difficult. It's very difficult. And experiencing the higher taste means really applying ourselves very dedicatedly, very sincerely in the path of sadhana bhakti. And from sadhana bhakti, rag, attachment, rag will arise, and then we'll move on to raganuga bhakti. So, yeah, it takes work. It takes work, and we have to be prepared to apply ourselves very diligently to the path of Krishna consciousness. I'm not sure if that answered your question, Nat.
Yes, it does, Prabhu. I think, one has to progress and one has to bring himself or herself to that level, I guess, through sadhana bhakti, practicing daily and regularly. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Now we are reading and discussing and appreciating the Damodar Leela. And, as we've been discussing, Mother Yashoda tried to bind Lord Krishna. And she got more and more and more and more rope. But that rope was always 2 fingers too short. And the Acharyas have explained 2 fingers too short because to succeed, to capture Krishna, we need, 1 is our endeavor, and 2 is Krishna's mercy. So both has to be there. We have to pray very hard. We endeavor while at the same time understanding our own inadequacies, our own frailties. Always pray to the mercy of for the mercy of our Lord Krishna and Guru and the Vaishnavas. And Parikshit Maharaj did that. He did that, you know. He received the sages. He had asked their blessings. He had sought their blessings so that he could, you know, perfect his life. Hare Krishna. Any other questions, comments? Anyone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the nice class. I had a question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
So all these great sages who were there, they came to see the departure of Parikshit Maharaj.
Uh-huh.
So how come they didn't go back home, back to Godhead?
How come the sages didn't go home, go back to God?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if they did or not. Those who stayed and heard Srimad Bhagavatam and came to the realization that devotional service to Lord Krishna is the topmost, and they applied themselves and they went back and continued with that consciousness, then certainly they would have. But those who, although having heard all of the instructions of Shukdev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, still they remain unconvinced, still they had doubts, and still if they didn't practice devotional service, then they would not have gone back to Godhead. So it's difficult to say from all of the assembled sages here. At the end of hearing the Bhagavatam, where they, but we can just you know, consider this principle of how they received the message of the Bhagavatam. In the same way, we applies to us. We all reading and studying Srimad Bhagavatam. Despite doing this, you know, we may still be fairly stuck in the same position. And the main reason is because we've not allowed the message into our hearts. The same way, same principle applies with the sages.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Vrindavan, Chandra, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Accept
Hare
my
Krishna.
obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada.
My understanding of, you know, we've been hearing this wonderful Bhagavatam. It was because it was Krishna's desire for Parikshit Maharaj to go back, and all this was arranged because Krishna wanted him to be back. I think that's why also it was easy for Parikshit Maharaj to, you know, to give up. He did not do anything else. He understood perfectly that it is Krishna's desire, because that's why these things happen. And also similarly, I mean, Krishna wanted him. So for him to give up everything and come and listen to Bhagavatam, it was much easier for him. Because, I mean, if it happens to me, so, you know, I would be shaking, you know. What happened? Why did person did this to me and all these things, you know, because we find unpurified consciousness, this would happen to me. But because he is a pure devotee of Krishna, and Krishna wanted him to be back, and that's why he was so sure of this, and that's why he could do that. Without Krishna's desire, he would have been hard for him to, you know, to give up everything. That's my understanding.
Yeah, just Krishna's desire, but also his determination to. True. He understood it was Krishna's desire.
He understood
In
it.
the same way, Prabhupada tells us, you know, Krishna is very, very eager that we all come back to him. And he's making so many arrangements. In the same way, Maharaj Parikshit saw all events as ultimately for his purification and his advancement. We can see also, it may be on a different scale, in a different context, but if we can see how Krishna sent Prabhupada how Krishna sent these literatures in English to us, how Krishna is giving so much mercy, and then we can increase our determination. It's good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guruji, Dhanyavad Pranam, Suresh Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Sailesh Prabhu, Dhanavad Pranams, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu. Can I add a little bit to your answer with respect to Mataji's question about why the sages didn't all go back?
You must, certainly.
We read in the Bhagavatam Mahimya that Gokarna performs the Shraddha and Bhagavatam ceremony, reading of recitation of Bhagavatam for his brother who had become a ghost. The brother becomes liberated, but the performers of the yagya and the recital of the Bhagavatam and the listeners, i.e. Gokarna, doesn't. So he asks the question, why is it that he's become liberated or not I, whilst I'm sitting here? So he said, I think the answer was that essentially it's the greed and the lobya with which we listen to the Bhagavatam. The reciprocation of the result happens accordingly. So I think the answer probably lies in there will be a mixture of those who may have been there at different levels of their bhakti and sadhana, and the intensity with which they were listening to. I presume that's the answer we should seek from the Bhagavatam itself.
Very nice. Thank you. So the greed and the mood of how we hear the Bhagavatam and apply it is the determines how it will impact us. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. I think most of the devotees here have greed. Oh, every session we see the same devotees, similar devotees coming. And I want to especially thank, some of our organizers here, Jyoti Mataji, Namrata Mataji, Rasa Leela Srimati Mataji, Sriji Kishori Mataji. Their determination to see these classes go ahead, they go to such extent to make this happen. I always feel very grateful for them for organizing the sessions. Thank you very much, all of you, both for those that come regularly and those who put so much of effort to organize everything. Hare Krishna. All right. There's no further questions, comments. Thank you very much. All glories to your service. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Panchakalpatarubhyascha. Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Nice class.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Krishna, 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 Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna. Sorry, what left?